So a few weeks ago, I'm sitting on my couch just hanging out. My wife comes up to me and asks, "What do you want for your birthday?" And my reply was simple: "I don't know." And I'll tell you right now, she did not like that one bit. So after a few days of her hounding me about it, I decided I'd ask for something rather practical. Something that I don't really have much of. A mouse. Another mouse, because as you all know, I don't already have enough of them. So today we're going to take a look at my birthday present, the Razer Basilisk X HyperSpeed. Does this G502 look-alike have a home in the market? Let's find out. What's going on, guys? I'm Brian, and today we're taking a look at the Basilisk X HyperSpeed from Razer, a very affordable G502 Lightspeed lookalike. But before we get started, if you are curious about anything I talk about today in this video, you can check out the description box below. I will have all the related links down there. Also, if you're new here, consider subscribing for more tech content just like this, and feel free to leave a thumbs up on this video if you end up enjoying it. Alright, so the Basilisk X HyperSpeed retails for just $60. Like, that's a pretty nifty price for a mouse that, as we'll get into in a minute, looks and feels very similar to the beloved G502 from Logitech. In the box, you will find the mouse, a AA battery, and some of Razer's typical documentation. And honestly, out of everything I've worked with in the PC world, I would definitely say Razer probably has some of the best documentation, if not the best documentation I've ever seen. The small details they kind of put into their documentation, like for example, it being colored, really make you feel like you bought a good, high quality product. And so I personally appreciate that, even if 95% of people that are buying their products aren't actually going to look at it at all. Alright, so the Basilisk X HyperSpeed is obviously super familiar looking if you've ever looked at or used the Logitech G502. It has a very similar ergonomic design as the G502 lineup, but the feel of it is a bit different in my opinion. The sides have this like finer textured grip, and it just feels nice and kind of smooth in your hand. The wheel on the mouse is also super nice as well. It's made of plastic, but it's also topped with a nice rubber grooved padding. I truly love the scrolling feedback this mouse provides, and I don't really know how to explain it, but it just feels nice and satisfying. The mouse opens up where your palm will rest, and inside here you will find like the USB dongle, as well as a place to insert one AA battery. The cover actually attaches via magnets, and I really like this design. It's super nice and clean. On the bottom of the mouse, you have a couple of things worth noting. First off, this is going to have 4 mouse feet that are nice and allow this mouse to glide pretty well. But I did find that there was a lack of like an additional foot on the right hand side of this mouse. It's kind of strange. And you know, the problem with strange is that if you end up putting pressure on that side, you kind of feel the mouse drag a little bit. So I'm not sure if this was just like an oversight by the design team, but I really wish there was an extra foot on this side as well to keep it from you feeling and hearing that drag. Now, will it actually impact your gaming performance? You know, I don't think so, but again, like I just said, it would definitely have been a nice to have for that side of the mouse. Secondly, you also have the on and off switch as well. This switch doubles as a switch to choose whether you will be connecting via like the 2.4 gigahertz dongle or Bluetooth. We will be talking about the performance for both connections in a minute, but I really like how they included it all in one rather than having like an on and off switch as well as like a 2.4 / Bluetooth switch. Now the Basilisk X HyperSpeed is also a pretty light lad, weighing in at just 107 grams with the battery installed. It feels super light, even when you compare it to like the G502 Lightspeed, which I have right here. And I thought this mouse was super light myself. As for the dimensions, the HyperSpeed comes in at 130 millimeters long. Then you have 70 millimeters wide, and then you also have 42 millimeters tall. The dimensions and weight, just like the G502 lineup, make this a great option for most people regardless of your hand size. Now, the build quality of this mouse is much higher than I expected, providing the actual price and what they're asking for the mouse, and the entire mouse feels just really nice and sturdy. And quite frankly, that's exactly what you're looking for in a gaming peripheral. Whether it's a keyboard or a mouse, you need something that's durable, because these tend to take a little bit more, say, damage than a mouse that you'd be using in the office or something. So that is a great thing. Moving on from build quality, we go into the features, and I think this is probably the most important section for this particular mouse. And that's because this mouse is pretty different in comparison to the rest of the Basilisk lineup. So first off, the HyperSpeed uses the older 5G optical sensor. This sensor allows for DPIs up to 16,000, and it was the same exact sensor that was that was in the original Basilisk that came out in 2017. As you'll see in a couple minutes when we get into the performance, this sensor is perfectly fine, but it is different from the newer Focus Plus sensor that comes packed in the Basilisk version 2 and Ultimate versions. Alright, so this mouse also has no RGB, and in my opinion, I actually love this decision. I seriously do not get or agree with most RGB implementation on mice nowadays. For example, the Logitech RGB logo on their mice, like right here, it doesn't make sense to me at all. Your hand is going to cover that logo, so why waste battery life on that? You know what I mean? Besides it telling you that the mouse is actually on. I definitely get the DPI / profile indicator that it has on here, but the logo to me, it just doesn't make sense. So to that statement, I am happy that they decided to not include it on the Basilisk X HyperSpeed. This mouse also has only 6 programmable buttons. This is where I may lose some of you, because I know one of the biggest selling points of this kind of style of mouse is that DPI shift button that the G502s have and the other Basilisks have, which is like at the very tip of your thumb. Unfortunately, Razer did omit it from this version of the Basilisk. Anyway, you have your standard left click and middle click buttons. Then you also have 2 buttons that are going to be above your thumb, and then one that's going to be in the center of the mouse as well. The actual standard left click buttons, along with the 2 that are going to be above your thumb, feel and sound great. But I personally found the middle mouse click button, as well as the center button, just to be kind of odd. They definitely are not buttons that I would want to count on in mid-game, and they just kind of felt hard to press and just not very comfortable to use. And so here is a quick sound test for any of you guys that are curious about that. As you can hear, they all sound pretty much good besides the 2 middle ones. Alright, so how does this mouse actually perform? As I mentioned earlier, you can connect this to your PC in 2 ways: the included 2.4 gigahertz wireless dongle or via Bluetooth. While gaming connected to the 2.4 gigahertz dongle, I noticed absolutely no lag or hiccups at all. Gaming performance was super smooth, and I actually really enjoyed playing games like CSGO with this mouse. And that actually is truly saying quite a bit, because I'm not a big fan of first-person shooters at all. I prefer to play games like, say, Rocket League or Total War or World of Warcraft, Civilization. Those type of games are what I like to play. So it's pretty cool how this mouse made me enjoy the shooters I was testing out with the mouse. Now, when we shift gears and look at the performance while connected via Bluetooth, I honestly noticed no difference compared to when it was connected via the 2.4 gigahertz dongle. Quite honestly, that actually surprised me quite a bit, because all of my previous experiences with Bluetooth peripherals haven't been that great. Now, when it comes to actually which one you should actually use, I would say definitely try to use the dongle when you can. Say if you have a desktop at home and a laptop for school or work, I would say use the dongle for your desktop at home, and then use Bluetooth with your laptop. That way you don't have to carry around the dongle and risk losing it while you're on the go. And this way you can actually keep your mouse, you can use it for both your home at-home system as well as your on-the-go system too. And so the last thing I want to mention about the performance is going to be the battery life. And supposedly when you are using the 2.4 gigahertz connection, you're supposed to get about 285 hours of battery life on this mouse. On the flip side, if you're using the Bluetooth connection, you're supposed to actually be able to get 450 hours of battery life. And from my testing, I feel like both of these estimates are probably pretty accurate. The problem is that the software doesn't actually give you a percentage of battery life that's remaining. At least I personally couldn't find it in the Razer software. So I couldn't really dispute or prove whatever their estimates are. I imagine this is probably because the mouse uses a AA battery versus like a rechargeable one though. And surprisingly, other than that, I didn't have any issues with the software whatsoever. The software does allow you to customize your buttons pretty heavily. This includes setting up a button for, like, say, a macro, or to start a program, volume up, volume down, and the list goes on and on and on. You'll have to dive into the software to kind of like mess around it to see what you can do. But I'm pretty sure like whatever you want to do, the software is going to be able to give you the ability to do it. The software also allows you to change like your DPI stages and your polling rate, which is important to some people. Quick note on the polling rate though: if you're connected via Bluetooth, you cannot change this at all. It'll use the standard Bluetooth, which I believe is 125 hertz. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that's what it is. And so should you buy the Razer Basilisk X HyperSpeed? And I think this is a very interesting question. The Basilisk X HyperSpeed has all the attributes for a good mouse. It's light and snappy, and it doesn't have any issues with connectivity or battery life. It gives you the option to connect via Bluetooth if you want this to be connected to a secondary device, and the mouse is also super comfortable to use. My biggest knock on this mouse is actually the fact that they didn't have an additional foot on the right-hand side of it, which, depending on who you are, it's not that big of a deal. And to me, it's really not that big of a deal. So my thought on whether you should buy this or not is this. If you want a wireless G502 look-alike, but you aren't willing to spend the $130 that they're asking for the Lightspeed right here, I think that this is a great option. Of course, that's assuming that you are going to be okay with losing 5 programmable buttons, including that like sniper button. On the other hand, if you really want those extra buttons, or you want that sniper button, the G502 SE Hero is dirt cheap these days, coming in at almost half the price of this guy right here. Again, of course, it has the wire. And then there's also like the Basilisk, the original Basilisk, or the Basilisk Essentials that are also a little bit cheaper than this one as well. So it really depends on what you want and what you're actually looking for in the mouse. If you found this video helpful, please give me a thumbs up. If you hated it, you know what to do, but take a second, let me know why in the comments below. Also, check out my latest video. It'll be popping up right here. And don't forget to subscribe for more tech content just like this. Thanks so much for watching.